Hello, this is your 17819987. We are gonna do another play talk through of Umineko. And sorry, I was just writing a note. And I am so ready to get into this game. It's been a little while. For some reason, I always seem to do this like once a week, but alright, so where did we leave off? I'm trying to remember. Alright, so here we are. We had just finished that initial conversation with the adults, and now we are having the convo with the kids. Let me take a drink really quick. Alright. Maria's sincere words probably spoke for everyone present. George and Nikki stroked Maria's head, and she giggled like a happy kitten. Pardon me. Your meal is ready. A timid knocking sound and the equally timid voice of a young woman came through the door. This must be Shannon. Jessica, sorry. It's been a little while since I played. Shannon, come in. You remember Battler, right? Jessica stood up from the bed and opened the door. There stood a servant girl who must have been about our age. It's been quite some time since we last met Battler-sama. It's nice to see you after 6 years. It's me, Shannon. Trembling a little as she noticed me, she bowed deeply. Ah, Jessica had me surprised, but look at you, Shannon-chan. You've turned into a total beauty too, haven't you? You're too kind. Still, the food on this island must be really nutritional, huh? What are you eating, and how are you training to get boobs that big? Guess I'll have to feel them a bit and see whether yours or Jessica's are bigger, okay? Oh man, he's going full on horny mode. With both hands poised and saliva dripping from my mouth, I closed in, for the sake of justice and my personal honor. I like to point out that I don't suffer from some strange disease that makes my lymph nodes itch until I scratch my neck open, and which can only be prevented by fondling breasts. That's ridiculous. This is just a Battler-style method of communication. If I slowly close in on her like this, odds are 8 or 9 out of 10 that I get slapped or clobbered, right? So I can use this Battler-sama original technique to spark a gag like that and break the ice. Well, it also means I really do get to touch them on that 1 in 10 chance, though, right? Dude, just shut up and do it. Yeah, like that ever happened. At that point, my hands were less than a centimeter away from Shannon-chan's boobs, but the counter-strike had yet to come. She blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment when she realized what was going on. But she just stood there with both hands politely joined in front of her, not even trying to resist or cover her breasts. Hey, I wasn't planning on this. Please, hit me right now, or I'm seriously gonna... Which is why I'm glad that Jessica chose that time to drive her elbow into the back of my head. Ow! Thank you so much, Jessica. Why are the hell are you thanking me? Huh? Seriously, my bad, Shannon-chan. Sorry about this creaking in my house. It drives me nuts. Sorry. I almost got overwhelmed by your hypnotic chest. More importantly, anyone who gets that close has got to be a molester. You gotta fight back when people do that. But you are an important guest, Battler-sama. Now look here, a pervert's a pervert, whether he's a guest or not. A girl's chest has got an air defense identification range of about 10 centimeters or so. This is crazy talk. Once someone trespasses within 2 centimeters, that's already an invasion of airspace. So you'd better scramble the jets immediately and give him an instant slap. I couldn't do such a thing, because we are, furniture. Of course she didn't want her breasts touched, but if a guest so desired, she was prepared to sacrifice herself to suit their wants. Yeah, she's fully committed, huh? A girl like this needs some urgent protection. To think such devoted girls still existed in this era. It's enough to make a man dizzy. And this is from 1990s, but yeah, it's true. Anyway. But no. No! I'm coming at you with a perverted face again. Knock me down. Look out. Pervert on the loose. This gag can't end until you deliver the punchline, so slap me. Please. Hit me! I cannot fulfill your request because I'm furniture. But if it were an order, I'd obey you. Because that is my duty. Then I'll make it an order. The next time Battler-kun tries to touch your wrist, counterattack with a slap. Got it? Yes. As you wish. From now on, that's what I'll do. Please understand, Battler-sama. Shannon-chan announced this while bowing elegantly to me. Her expression was radiant. I gave her a thumbs up to show her I was fine with that. 6 years ago, you may have been mistaken for a servant's daughter who lent a hand at your parents' work. But now you're a full-fledged adult servant. How long have you been working here? Well, I've had the pleasure of serving this household for about 10 years. She's... The kanji for her name are read as Shannon. Oh my gosh, house creaked again, sorry. Now here's another name from far as typical for a Japanese person. True. Back in the day, I was a kid myself, so I accepted her name without paying it much attention. Thinking about it now, though, her name's pretty unusual, even though she's not a member of the Ushirimiya family. Maybe it's like a servant's professional name or something. If so, that might explain why her name's so similar to Kanon-kun, that kid I met earlier in the Rose Garden, so it may not even be her real name, which is kind of interesting. She's a long-term servant who served here since she was 6 years old. Her appearance had changed so much that I couldn't match her to the person of my memories, but we both knew each other 6 years ago. That shy part of her had always been there, but she did seem to have developed the allure you'd expect of a girl her age. Especially in her breasts, yes. That kid we met earlier, Kanon-kun, is her little brother. Oh really? They're related? He's not exactly my little brother. Still, he loves me like a big sister. Well, that's good. He didn't cause you any trouble, did he? Haha, he's the same as always. If only he were a bit more sociable. I apologize if he's caused you any trouble. Nah, he didn't cause any trouble at all. As a fellow man, I understood how moody you can get at that age. It's no surprise he's unsociable. I get called that all the time too. I get called unsociable. Just like Canon! Ooh! You aren't unsociable at all, Maria-sama. Ooh? Wanted to be like him. Ooh. You said the meal was ready, right? Ah, yes. I'm sorry. Your meal has been fully prepared, so please allow me to guide you all the way to the mansion. Shannon bowed again formally and returned to her duty mode. We realized that if we made her stick around for any more light conversation, it would actually make it harder for her to do her job. We got up off of our butts to avoid interfering with her work any further. So, shall we go to the mansion? Everyone's probably hungry, right? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Goto-san's food. That guy was apparently a chef at this famous hotel, so he's super good at cooking. Oh, I can't wait. Let's go, Maria. We're gonna stuff ourselves like pigs. Ooh, stuff ourselves like pigs. No, you can't take everything Badler-kun says seriously, okay? Because he's always just joking around. Okay, let's go. Under Shannon-chan's guidance, we headed towards the mansion. Alright, so they've made their way there. Right, because they were in the guest house. Met once again by the magnificent rose garden, we continued onward as the intimidating mansion of the Ushirimiya head family came into view. It had apparently been built shortly after the war, so you could feel the dignity of almost a half-century hanging about it. The building was gorgeous on the surface, but old as it was, equipment such as AC and heating were apparently quite frail. According to Jessica, midwinter was especially tough with all the drafts. Haven't these people ever heard of a kotatsu? Alright, so let's go in the mansion. We've only been in the mansion with adults, so... As we entered the entrance hall, an aged servant greeted us. Now, him I remembered. Genji-san, who had been working here longer than anyone, filled the role of head servant. Badler-sama, it has been quite some time since we have last met. As our eyes met, he greeted me with a calm, composed voice. His bow wasn't as graceful or refined as Gota's, but despite its simplicity, it communicated his feelings very well. Genji-san, it really has been a while. Genji-san, it really has been a while. You look well. Thank you, I have been quite well. And Badler-sama, you have become a splendid young man. You are beginning to resemble the master in his youth. I look like grandfather? Guess that means grandfather was pretty popular with the ladies when he was young. From here on, I shall take Shannon's place and accompany you. Please come this way. Shannon-chan bowed deeply and watched us leave. After that, we headed towards the dining room under Genji-san's guidance. Genji-san, just like Kumasawa-san, stood in stark contrast to us young people who had grown beyond recognition over the last 6 years. His appearance was exactly the same as in my memories from 6 years ago. I'm going to take a quick sip here. Gotta keep your throat. Hold on. When you read as much as I do, I have to be able to keep my throat healthy. Anyway. It was as though time had stopped since the last time we met. Genji-san was an extremely quiet and diligent person. He was basically grandfather's choice aide or caregiver, and you might even call him grandfather's companion of many years. In fact, it seems he was by grandfather's side even more often than my late grandmother was. According to Jessica, Grandfather trusted him more than any of his blood relatives. But I wonder how long he served. I never got the details, but I heard something about him being here since the very beginning, when this mansion was being first constructed, which would mean that he's dedicated half of his life to serving here. It's easy to see why he's so trusted. As we passed through a massive hall that extended up into the second story of the mansion with no separating floor, I spotted something that hadn't existed in my memory of 6 years ago. A flash. Oh, this must be something important to the story then. Now, some of you may already know who this is. I roughly kind of know what she is, but I don't know the full character of her, so I'm not going to say anything yet. It was an awfully big portrait hanging right in front of the stairs that rose to the second floor. Without thinking, I stopped walking, captivated by it. Since I stopped so fast, Maria, who was following behind me, ran into my back. Ooh? Sorry. Hey, Jessica, has that picture always been there? I pointed at the big, prominently displayed portrait in the hall. Everyone else stopped too. Oh, right. When you last came here, that hadn't been hung yet, had it? When was it again? Well, if my memory doesn't fail me, it was put on display sometime around the year before last, so 2 years ago? You are correct, sir. In April of the year before last, the master put on the display there, having previously ordered a painter to create it. Grandfather did that? So he paid to have it painted just for him, huh? Commission, pretty much. The portrait suited this western mansion, and the woman in the elegant dress gave off a sense of refinement. I couldn't have guessed her age, but her sharp eyes and the strong will she seemed to possess made her look useful. She seemed somehow different from the composed, middle-aged women you often see in famous pictures. If she had normal black hair, I would have assumed it was a portrait of my long-deceased grandmother in her prime. Makes sense. However, she had beautiful blonde hair and didn't look Japanese at all. Okay, I thought it was orange, though. Well, whatever, it's blonde. Fine. So, just who is this lady? Maria answered that simple question enthusiastically, as though proud she knew the answer. Ooh, I know. She's Beatrice. Bea what? Beatrice. She's a witch. Oh, they're just saying this so casually. Didn't you ever hear stories about her long ago? A witch? You mean the witch of this island? I think I already said this, but Rokanjima is a small island, only 10 kilometers in circumference. However, that's actually pretty massive considering that only the Ushiramiya family lives here. Now, I'm a Westerner that is from the United States. I have to know 10 kilometers to miles. How many miles is that? It's 6.2 miles. Okay, so, well, that's still pretty long. Yeah, I can see what he's saying. So only the harbor and the area around the mansion were set up to be lived in. So, in other words, their area that they're occupying is not very large compared to the rest of the island. Beyond that, the island remained as untouched as it was when it was an uninhabited island. The vast and empty forest had absolutely no lights, phones, or people passing through. To understand how dangerous that is, you need to forget your common sense as a city dweller. After all, if you happen to fall down a hole in the depths of the forest and sprain your ankle, no one would come to save you, no matter how much you cried or screamed. Then, so this is really foreshadowing heavily, isn't it? We're definitely going to end up in that forest at one point or another. Anyway, then, once the sun went down, the forest would be wrapped in complete darkness, since there were no streetlights. And since there would be no signs, it'd be easy to get lost and confused, losing your sense of direction inside that dark forest. Nowadays, most people see a forest as a peaceful place, but to the people of bygone eras before the light of civilization drove out the night, forests were as geographically separated from civilization as the sea. They were oceans above the ground. Fishermen who go out into the ocean are putting their lives at risk despite their technical knowledge. In the same way, hunters who go out to the forest are in danger, despite having specialized knowledge of their own. If children were to go to play in such a dangerous forest, something terrible might happen. Someone's parents must have thought so. Maybe grandmother first said it, or maybe it was grandfather himself. Or perhaps the story's been passed down on this island since ancient times. There's a terrible witch in the forest, so you must not go in. At some point, the ghost story in Rokenjima was born. This is the legend of Rokenjima's witch. That's why, when we talk about a witch on this island, we're referring to the master of that vast and savage forest. Come to think of it, when I stayed at this mansion as a little kid, during those eerie nights when the wind and rain pounded on the windows, I remember being terrified by the story of the forest witch who roamed around searching for human sacrifices. So, Beatrice, huh? I'm not sure if they say Beatrice or Beatrice. It's got different ways of saying it, but I guess it's Beatrice. When Aniki mentioned it, I searched my memory and was sure I recalled hearing a name like that when I was little. I see. Still, I totally forgot that the witch in that legend had an elegant name like Beatrice. So, did grandfather go out of his way to have a portrait made just because we grandchildren didn't believe the story? She's the witch from grandfather's delusions. Ever since he had this picture hanged, he'd been having a harder and harder time telling the difference between truth and fantasy. To us, she's just a witch that exists in grandfather's mind, but to him, she's a being that exists on this island. Exists, quote unquote. He says he had this painting made because the rest of us would be incapable of understanding otherwise. The whole thing's creepy as hell. Milady, this portrait is precious to the master. I beg of you, do not say such things in front of him. Right, she can get in serious trouble if she talked about it like that. I know. Even if you didn't tell me, I'd never do something like that. Jessica glanced at the portrait with an irritated gaze before turning away. Let's go. We're making everyone wait in the dining room. Ooh, I'm hungry. Only a small portion of this island was controlled by the Jeremia family. All the lawless remainder was the domain of the witch Beatrice. You might even call her the true ruler of Rokenjima. I felt a faint revival of that unsettling sense of misfortune, which I'd felt when I learned of the tutelary god's shrine being struck by lightning. And I remember that Kumasama-san tried to tell an ominous story about Rokenjima before Jessica stopped her. I don't know what she was planning to tell us about this island, but but I do know one thing. It isn't the Ushirimiya family that rules Rokunjima. It's the witch, Beatrice. That's right. After all, this is the Witch's Island. Battler! Ooh, you're slow! When I looked around, everyone was already headed towards the dining room. I hurriedly chased after them. Alright, so now we're going to meet up with the whole group, finally. We walked up to the huge double doors that led to the dining room. Genji-san knocked. I have brought the children. Please pardon the intrusion. The doors were opened and we were invited inside. The dining room, which looked exactly like you'd imagine a rich person's dining room to be, had a super long table that was obviously positioned with no purpose other than to make the guests feel conscious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance with that ordering. You're late, brats. Hurry up and take a seat. The old bastard pressed us to sit. The only gaps in that group of people were the spots we were supposed to sit, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, called the incipient's chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He probably wanted to show up last for dramatic effect. From the perspective of someone facing the incipient's chair head-on, the seating order went from left to right, with the lower ranking seats progressing in rows of 2 further away from it, like in this picture. So, the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the incipient's chair, was where Uncle Kraus should have sat, since he was the second highest in rank. It looked like he hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. Across from the chair on the right side of the first row sat the eldest daughter of the family, Aunt Eva, who was the third highest in rank. Oh, I didn't know she was the third highest. The left hand side of the second row is for the fourth highest in rank. There sat my damn dad, Rudolph, the third of the siblings. Across from him, on the right side of the second row, sat Aunt Rosa, the youngest sibling. At this point, you might expect their husbands and wives to come next. But nope. The left-hand seat in the third row, rank number 6, belonged to Jessica. Really, that's interesting. Opposite her was George and Iki. I sat next to Jessica, and Maria sat across from me. She's just such a funny-looking kid. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Then finally, next to me, on the left-hand side of the 5th row, sat Aunt Natsuhi, the 10th highest in rank. She's the lowest ranked person? Really? Oh, no, she's not. Okay. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. Next to... I'm sorry, there's a lot of names here. Next to Aunt Natsuhi in the 6th row, and the final seat on the left-hand side sat Kiri-san. Alright. The seat opposite to Kiri-san was empty. Even though silverware had been sat there and everything. According to this ranking system, that spot was where Aunt Rosa's husband should be sitting. Interesting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Well, just as a, courtesy and precaution. Normally, ranking systems of this sort give spouses equal positions as their partners, but the Mishirimiya family system was unique. Maybe it's a remnant of male chauvinism. If you start with the assumption that a woman's womb is just something to be borrowed, then the children of the direct descendant would come first. directly followed by the grandchildren. In other words, spouses have no blood ties and are therefore placed at the end of the line. Right, that's what I would assume. It's terrible, but by this system, my grandmother would be ranked even lower than me if she were still alive. In their youth, they obey their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. That's the old saying, or there's the old saying, women have no home in any realm. I've never heard that saying before. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that we could all chat in our little groups, adult siblings with adult siblings, and cousins with cousins. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. Aunt Natsuhi, who was married to the eldest son and was the de facto number 2 in managing this family, sat to my right, which meant that she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. It was hard to imagine what might be going on inside her heart. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture toward her before sitting down. How nice to see you, Battler-kun. You've grown quite tall, haven't you? Oh, yep. 6 long years of eating well, sampling various cuisines, and deriving sustenance from Mother Earth's bountiful gifts. Hard work, but I pulled through. Growing just like a boy, I see. How tall are you now? I guess about 180 centimeters. And for Americans like me, I looked it up, that's 5'10". Anyway. But Aunt Natsuhi, that's where you're supposed to say, heck, sounds like you all you did was eat. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. After a short pause, she did laugh with me, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. Right, it might be kind of hard for her to... Just think about it. He literally just talked about their ranking and where they are in the family, but they're very different people. This woman is Aunt Natsuhi. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning she's my father's older brother's wife. It is simpler if I just call her Jessica's mother. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like just call her Jessica's mother. It feels bad to say it like this, but while I didn't exactly dislike her, I didn't particularly like her either. She hardly ever spoke with us kids, and all my memories of her involve her talking to the adults about complicated things, with a scary look on her face. In fact, since we hardly ever exchange words... Sorry, I thought I heard something. Okay. In fact, since we hardly ever exchanged words, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I should approach her. Right. They're very different people. Though my efforts seem to have ended in failure. Hold on, my dogs. Go sit down. No. Lay down. I'm not having it. Sorry about that. Though my efforts seem to have ended in failure. The silverware sat neatly on the table, but the meal itself hadn't brought it in yet. As a general rule, you couldn't start a meal until the person sitting at the head of the table arrived. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common rule. So, as long as grandfather didn't come, lunch would be put on hold indefinitely. Not even the appetizers would arrive. Simply put, the silence in the room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. However, the grandfather from my memories would always show up on time to meals like this. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived. Grandfather's pretty late. As far as I can remember, he was always strict about time. Well, that might have been true 6 years ago, but it hasn't been that way lately. In fact, he's off in his own little world so often that he doesn't even show up at family meals. Still, I figured he'd at least come down today. Then again, I feel a lot more relaxed and happy without him. Jessica! When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. Lan. Yeah, so there's your natural mother-daughter problem. No way around it. Might as well wait until our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. I wonder when he'll get there. Well here, this is not at the table, obviously. Yoshiramiya Kinzo, the aged family head of the Yoshiramiya head family. This man could be seen in his study. The clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. With his spectacles on, he built up a growing pile of books with elaborate bindings, which he then read intently. You couldn't really say that he was having too much fun to stop. Rather, he filled the room with a sense of impatience, or perhaps a sense of impending danger, so every second wasted away was a tragedy. In this sealed room, a dense dust danced through the air, which was thick with the stench of chemicals that exuded a mix of suspicious odors. Those odors were somehow sweet and heavy. If anyone with a normal nose came in here, the first thing they would do would be to open a window and ventilate this room. The knocking against the study door had been going on for a while. A voice calling "Father" sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut the old book in his hands and slammed it on the table. Then he yelled at Kraus, who was still knocking on the door. "Silence! Enough with that racket, you fool! Who told you the door would be opened if you but knocked? I'll crucify the imbecile. Do you wish to suffer the same fate?" "Father, this is the day of the family conference, which happens only once a year, is it not? Everyone's gathered down below. Please, come out." Kraus called out to his father through the door. Oops. Kinzo always shut himself up in the study, hating it when nearly anyone, even his family, entered the room. For that reason, Kraus had no choice but to call to him from the corridor like this. "Molest me not! Just who is this everyone of which you speak? Do you mean the fools trying to drag me out of here? Then kill them all! Tear them apart, use their bodies for firewood, and feed them into the witch's hearth. Put a pot in that hearth to boil the wormwood. Force the imbeciles who dare try to lure me out of here to drink the broth of the apocalypse. I will soak their dregs in liquor. Where is Genji? Call for Genji. Have my demonic absinthe prepared." This guy is, wow. I mean, just by his description alone, he sounded crazy, but now we know he's absolutely off his knocker. Anyway, the whispering of the green fairy reaches me no longer. Where's Genji? Bring him here! On the other side of the door, Kraus, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who stubbornly refused to come out. Looks like he hates me to the core. My voice doesn't reach him anymore. Kraus shrugged as though saying it's no use, and smiled bitterly. From the beginning, he hadn't really expected his father to respond to his calls. However, since it was the duty of the eldest son, he had tried as a formality. Kinzo-san, your sons, daughters, and grandchildren have come to see you, have they not? Could you just let them see your face, if only for a short while? Shut up! Be silent! You dare to admonish me, Nanjo? I never told anyone to get you, I told them to get Genji! Now call for him immediately! Time is short, and the apostles are already readying their trumpets. I kind of skipped over the text a little there. Whatever, we get the idea. Kinzo slammed an old, heavy book against the table over and over. Bonk, bonk, bonk. That racket clearly expressed his great displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled, "Why? Why is there always something in my way? I would throw it all away. I would offer up everything, and there's only one thing I ask in repayment. Oh, Beatrice, if I could see your smile but one more time, I would plunder the smiles of the earth and offer them all up to you. Oh, commanders of the legions of locusts, reap the smiles of the earth." Ah, everything is filthy, everything is irksome. Why must I suffer this impediment on this most precious of days? Call for Genji! Man, this guy's going through it. I have no idea what he's yelling about. He's probably lost his mind by now. Kraus-san, isn't it a bit harsh to say such a thing of your own father? My father is already dead. There's nothing here but a phantom of what father once was. At any rate, as long as he has no intention of coming out, there's nothing we can do. Kinzo-san. Oh. Choking coughs continued to pour from the study. I'm going back downstairs. It would be a waste to let the fruits of Goda's prized cooking talent get any colder. It's one of the few things our relatives can look forward to when they come to this house. Kraus spun around. He looked at the watch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain. Genji-san, father is calling for you. Keep him company. Certainly. Dr. Nanjo, let's go eat. If we stay here any longer, this sweet stench will ruin our sense of taste. Without waiting for Nanjo, Kraus went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo glanced between the study door and Kraus's back as the latter disappeared down the stairs, then let out a deep sigh. Sorry, Genji-san, but please allow me to leave this in your hands. Yes, please leave it to me. Do what you can to avoid giving him alcohol. That's a habit that's far too difficult to break. Is Genji not here yet? Who dares keep Genji from coming? Ah, where's Genji? Call for Genji! Please allow me to handle the situation here. Very well. Forgive me. Nanjo bowed slightly and descended the stairs. Genji watched him leave, then knocked on the study door. Master, it is Genji. Genji! Why have you kept me waiting for so long? You're alone, I trust? Correct. I am alone. Kinzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Kinzo was convinced that his family wanted to make a mess of his study. Or perhaps someone had once opened the window for some air and ended up gathering things that to him were important research materials, leaving him in a terrible mood. Kinzo had outfitted his room with a formidable lock, preventing anyone from entering without his permission and thereby sealing himself in a jail of his own making. Genji, whom he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that didn't always hold. If Kinzo was in a bad mood, even Genji wouldn't be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, unable to even see Kinzo's face. And most of the time, what they got could hardly be called a conversation. However, this didn't trouble the rest of the family much. After all, it was just worth the effort to disturb this aging family head, who was impossible to please, and always stayed shut away, immersed in his research, taking advantage of his refusal to leave the room. They supported his isolation, putting his care entirely into the hands of the servants. Alright, I'm going to stop here.